Crown Prince Fumihito, the brother of Japan's Emperor Naruhito, has been officially declared heir to the Japanese throne during a ceremony in Tokyo. The day-long ceremony at the palace had been scheduled for April but was postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic and has been scaled back as infections keep on rising in the country. The ceremony was attended by the imperial family and 46 guests. Most attendees wore masks and social distancing was maintained at the ceremony. Now, during the ceremony, Naruhito declared the 54-year-old Fumihito Crown Prince to the people of Japan and abroad. Fumihito is 6 years younger to his brother and Emperor Naruhito.
皇室典範の定めるところにより、文仁親王が皇嗣であることを広く内外に宣明します。
Under Japanese law, only males can inherit the throne, so Naruhito's only offspring, 18-year-old Princess Aiko, is ineligible. Efforts to amend the law were abandoned when Fumihito's wife bore a son, Hisahito, in 2006. Joining us on this broadcast is Professor James D. Brown, who is an international affairs expert based in Tokyo. Professor, welcome to WION. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Just for our viewers, could you kindly explain the significance of this ceremony where Crown Prince Fumihito, brother of Japan's Emperor Naruhito, has been officially declared the heir to the Japanese throne?
So as with all royal families, absolutely kind of crucial to their activities are all of the ceremonies attached to the role. So when Naruhito became emperor, there were a series of very elaborate ceremonies that were planned. And this, applying to his brother taking the role of crown prince, is really one of the last of those. It was supposed to take place, as you mentioned in your introduction, earlier this year, but it was now being held just this last weekend. So the ceremony itself is a little bit of a formality, but what makes it so interesting this time round is it really focuses attention on the real difficulties that the Japanese imperial family have in terms of the shortage of heirs. Because besides the Crown Prince Fumihito himself, the only other real viable heir is his son, Prince Hisahito, meaning that really there's only two of those heirs to this long-standing imperial line.
Right. All coronavirus restrictions were maintained during the ceremony, and rightly so. This ceremony was delayed, like we told our viewers earlier, because it was scheduled earlier in the year, but was delayed because of the coronavirus pandemic and the restrictions. Could you just talk about Crown Prince Fumihito, his views, his policies? What we are learning is that he's a very outspoken member of the Japanese royal family.
That's right. So within the Japanese system, there's a very clear line which is drawn between the imperial family and politics. They absolutely must not involve themselves within politics. The Japanese emperor is not officially the head of state. He is only the symbol of the state. And so since the Second World War, there has been this rule that they need to keep themselves very, very separate from politics. But just on occasion, you have a figure within the imperial family who's a little bit more outspoken. And that applies to the Crown Prince Fumihito. Now, we shouldn't take this too far. He's not openly speaking out on political issues. It's rather that it's just a small sign here and there where he gives a little bit of a hint of his views. Beside that, he's very interested in scientific issues, especially natural science, so studying of various types of wildlife. And that's one of his main passions. Besides that, as with other members of the royal family, very much seeking to support elements of the Japanese community that are particularly seen as requiring additional support.
Professor James D. Brown, thank you so much for joining us from Tokyo and getting us all this detail.